up terrorist activity wherever we may find it. And I will never hesitate to do what is necessary to defend the American people, just as I will never forget our sacred duty to those of you who serve. Never before in our history has America asked so much for so many over such a sustained period for all volunteer force. You make up 1% of the population. You're the strength, the venue, you're the backbone, you're the sinew of America. As a nation, we have many obligations, but I've been saying for 30 years, we only have one truly sacred obligation: to prepare those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they return home and when they do not return home. It's an obligation, not based on party or politics, but on a promise that unites all Americans. And together over the last 2.5 years, I've worked to make good on that promise, signing more than 25 bipartisan laws to support our service members and veterans and their families and caregivers and survivors. We will not stop. We owe you. We owe you big, and it matters. Across the country, many Americans heard our nation's call in the days right after 9/11. And there were those who were just children, not even born yet when this happened. But when their time came to choose to serve, not because they saw something, but because they felt something, like many of you did. The same feeling that brought Americans together on this painful day 22 years ago. Unity. Now, it shouldn't take a national tragedy to remind us of the power of national unity. But that's how we truly honor those we lost on 9/11. By remembering what we can do together, to remember what destroyed, what we repaired, what was threatened, that we fortified, what was attacked, and an indomitable American spirit prevailed over all of it. Ordinary Americans responding to extraordinary and unexpected ways. That's who you are. You are the soul of the nation. That's not hyperbole. To me, that's the central lesson of September 11th. Not that we'll never again falter or face setbacks. It's that for all our flaws and disagreements, there's nothing we cannot accomplish when we defend with our hearts, which make us unique in the world, our democracy. Our democracy. Every generation has to fight to preserve it. That's why the terrorists targeted us in the first place. Our freedom, our openness, our institutions, they failed, but we must remain vigilant. Today, we can look across the country and around the world and see anger and fear in places many of you have been stationed before. A rising tide of hatred and extremism and political violence. It's more important than ever that we come together around the principle of American democracy, regardless of our political backgrounds. We must not succumb to the poisonous politics of difference and division. We must never allow ourselves to be pulled apart by petty manufactured grievances. We must continue to stand united. We all have an obligation, a duty, a responsibility to defend, to preserve, to protect our democracy. And always remember, American democracy depends not on some of us, but on all of us. American democracy depends on the habits of the heart of we the people. The habits of the heart. Let me close with this. Earlier today in Hanoi, I visited a marker to honor my friend, war hero, senator, and statesman John McCain. John and I disagreed like hell, like two brothers. We'd argue like hell on the Senate floor. Then we go to lunch together. I went out to see John just before he passed away at his home. As I was walking out, I put my hand on his chest and he pulled me down. He kissed me. He said, "I love you. Will you do my eulogy?" John and I were friends, like a lot of us who had differences. Like Ted Stevens and I were friends. We disagreed, but we're friends. One thing I always admired about John was how he put duty to country first. And that's not hyperbole. He did. Above party, above politics, above his own person. This day reminds us we must never lose that sense of national unity. So let that be the common cause of our time. Let us honor September 11th by renewing our faith in one another. Let us remember who we are as a nation. We never forget. We're never afraid. We endure. We overcome. We are the United States of America. And there is nothing, literally, historically, nothing has been beyond our capacity when we set our mind to it together. Well, God bless you all. May God protect our troops. Thank you.